Hojvazo Dodvari. Welcome to the world building stream. It's Sunday night. I'm Timothy, and we are gonna design some dwarf shit. Get our dwarf on tonight. How's everybody doing? Welcome. Yeah, it was a pretty good day today. What did I do today? I ran a game earlier. Ran a game for my 13-year-olds that was interesting, to say the least. They inadvertently helped Tiamat recover 4 of the 5 artifacts she needs in order to be summoned back to the material plane. So that was an unexpected turn of events. But it was cool. That it was dramatic when it happened, right? It wasn't like they just blundered into it. It was more like they willingly chose to do it in order to save their friends. And they're kind of just blasé, but I'm like, well, whatever. And I'm like, you do know that that's one step closer towards, like, you know, annihilation on a scale hitherto unknown. And they're kind of like, oh, well, you know, it's 4 of the 5, so she doesn't have the last one. Like, as though, you know, anything could happen. So that was exciting. That was cool. Yeah, otherwise, I've been playing some Magic, hanging out, and I'm excited to be here, getting ready to do the stream. Yeah, tonight's going to be kind of an interesting one. I'm actually going to grab my phone super quick. Hey, what's up, David? How you doing? Yeah, oops to that, indeed. It was a big oops. I'm going to go grab my phone super fast. It'll take 30 seconds. Now that David's here, I have to leave the stream really quick because I have my water, David, but I have to get my phone and turn my music down because it's in my headphones and it's too loud. I can't hear myself think. Be right back. 1 second. That's much better. Welcome, everybody. Sorry about that. Yeah, it was a big oops. It was definitely a big oops. What's up, Jose? Thanks for coming. How you doing, sir? How's everybody doing tonight? It's world building time. Today might be a shorter episode. We'll see how long it takes. And what we're really doing, yeah, just destroy the 5th. The funny thing about the 5th, because they're daggers, are these 5 daggers that they need. And the funny thing about the 5th dagger is that I had originally planned to give it to the big villain. David, you would know. I had originally planned to give it to Imrith. But because they gave Tiamat 4 of the 5 daggers that they need, then no, I can't really have the villain have the 5th one, because if she does, then what's stopping them from just bringing Tiamat back when the players are, like, you know, 5th level? So that's not going to work. Instead, I've decided that Imarith, the villain, the blue dragon villain of Storm King's Thunder, spoiler alert, I guess, for Storm King's Thunder. Aha! That's okay. I always forget stuff. I'm always bad about that. Like, I sit here in front of my computer before the stream starts, just staring off or doing whatever or dicking around, and then realize, like, oh, wait, crap, I actually need something. I need to get, why did I not get my stuff I need for my stream? Anyway, so I decided to move the dagger to another, now that Imarith is looking for the dagger, right? It's like a race to see who can get to it first, because they've given 4 of the 5 daggers directly to Tiamat. So, you know, that didn't go great. Anyway, but here we are. That's all of that beside. Tonight might be a bit of a shorter session because we are just going to focus on one clan tonight. And it's a relatively small, it's an underclan. It's not one of the major clans. In my upcoming dwarven campaign, because it's kind of a weird combination world building / adventure prep stream, because in my home game right now, my personal game, not the one I'm running for any clients, it takes place in Ondune, my setting, and it is about the campaign that I'm currently running is about 1,000 years before the campaign I intend to run for the podcast. And through some happenstance, they ended up in Coombe. And so it's kind of interesting to look at the history of what's going on in Coombe at that time, as opposed to where we will be doing the campaign later, right? What's up, Vaughn? Welcome back. It's lovely to have you. Yeah, we are doing some dwarfing. It's dwarf time. So in my home game, they're 1,000 years before this campaign, before Helm and Crown. So Coombe is, like, still in full swing, and everything's going great. And I mean, well, not everything's going great, but, you know, it's the dwarves haven't left. None of that's happened yet. We're in the reign of a queen named Dunya Dragonsbane, who is famous for hunting down and slaying the 5 or 6 red dragons that nested in Coombe. and the party are going to be interacting with another dwarven underclan when they're there, Clan Bracebow, and I don't know very much about them, so I kind of figured that we would talk today about them and we would build them out. Although we will be building this clan 1,000 years before the Sorrows, we can maybe talk about like where they go from there and what happens to them. They might not feature prominently into Helm and Crown at all, but they will definitely be in my home game, which is called the Menagerie. So we need it for Menagerie, and we may be able to learn some stuff about them for the purposes of Helm and Crown. That's kind of how it works. So really, you're helping me do my homework tonight because I got to get this done. Not necessarily for this week, but for soon. I figured, why not? What better place to do it than right here on the stream? So let me walk you through the campaign premise a little bit to help you understand the context into which the characters will be encountering this clan, and then we can kind of dig into the specifics. So the home game I'm running right now, just for fun, just for some friends, is set, as I said, 1,000 years before Helm and Crown, and it's basically the Chain of Acheron. Like it's a mercenary company traveling around, managing their troops, taking contracts, that kind of thing. I really like the Chain of Acheron. I just reread the Black Company again when I started running this, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of these sort of like raconteur mercenaries traveling around the world and getting into trouble and kind of involving themselves in geopolitics. I wanted to come up with a campaign that would let me explore different corners of the world that I hadn't yet explored. And then, of course, ironically, we ended up in Coom. But I thought like a globe-trotting political game would help, me kind of understand, all right, who are the players involved, what's going on at this different time. So it's set 1,000 years before Helm and Crown, and the big kind of, to borrow a phrase from Matt Colville again, is the big sort of central tension is the aftermath of this giant kind of World War I-esque conflict called the Night Wars, where the undead nation of Thanatos basically was overcrowded with undead and then tried to like spread them and conquer territory, across the southern half of the world. And so, indeed, trouble pays. Exactly. What's up, Shadowhunter? Thanks for coming. Look at this. People coming and hanging out. I appreciate everyone making the time for this silly show. So it's the aftermath of the Night Wars. The undead have been defeated, but the three empires, the dwarves, elves, and orcs that teamed up to beat them are kind of shattered and broken and just about to kind of begin their descent into collapse. And that's when the campaign is set. It's like the characters are all like officers in this mercenary company. Again, just the Chain of Acheron, my version of it, pretty much the same idea. But rather than having one of the characters be the commander, I did sort of a Harada Captain Inio move and said that there's a powerful NPC who is the commander of the company. Her name is Chimera. All the characters in the company have monster names because they're called the Menagerie. So our players are Griffin, Remoraz, Mouse, who's an animal, right? And then Umber as an Umber Hulk. Anyway, so the point is that they're mercenaries and they're here in Coom. And Coom is kind of right now reeling from the effects of having sent its army overseas to go fight the dead. They are influx with human refugees who are like spreading the Black Bloat. Yeah, it's totally post Hobbit Battle of Five Armies. Yeah, absolutely. And there's definitely big Hobbit vibes in this part of the campaign for sure. Like there's a lot of deliberate Hobbit references. But yeah, I kind of think of it as almost, I think even Eberron is a good touchstone where it's sort of like post Last War, right? Like this big World War I style conflict that just like decimated a bunch of nations and left disease in its wake and like climate destruction or habitat destruction. Like anywhere that the dead conquered, they kind of despoiled the land. So you have these like huge stretches of territory called the spoils. Anyway, none of that is relevant to what we're doing tonight. But Coom is kind of reeling from the lack of an army. They sent their army, the Crown Guard, overseas to go and fight in the war, and there was a big disaster, and the Dwarven king who went to lead them died, and his army died, and then his successor, Queen Dunya, his niece, then became the queen, and she's in charge now, and she's kind of this rowdy, boisterous character. Dunya Dragonsbane is a big influence on later Harada Hornwinder, the character from the one-shot that I ran for at least a few of our audience. She's kind of like the role model that Harada looks to, Dunya Dragonbane. She gets that name because during her tenure, the red dragons that normally kind of lie dormant in Coom sort of all awaken at once by some mysterious signal and kind of go around and they raid a little bit and they steal some treasure and they cause some trouble. And so she decides to take what little army she has and go out and start confronting these dragons. And she just systematically, one by one, beats each one of them. And so she gets this reputation among the common people for being this, like, hero, right? She kills these dragons and then she contributes the hordes to the nearby clans that have been decimated by their attacks. So she's popular among the underclans, kind of the lower class, but she is not very popular among the upper class who think she should be spending more time queening and less time dragon slaying. Anyway, so she is the character's client. She has hired the menagerie, the company, to come in and help her defeat the last two dragons. After her previous attempt, two of the dragons like teamed up against her and what little army she had and decimated the remains of her crown guard. So she needs to hire outside mercenaries. Wink, wink, yog. Exactly. She needs to hire outside mercenaries to come in and help her slay these dragons. And so that's where the company comes in. So they come in and they've been there for a little while. They're currently fighting one of the dragons, or working on slaying one of the dragons. But the second dragon they have to slay, Zaraska, the Red Matron, is a particularly cunning dragon, and she is installed in a ruined fortress in one far corner of the of Coombe, kind of in the northern tip of it. Long story short, Dunia's plan is to get the aid of a dwarven clan called Clan Bracebow. That's why we're here, finally, to help her slay the dragon. Clan Bracebow is known for having invented the crossbow, basically like a ranged weapon that the dwarves can use because they're not very proficient archers, right? They don't really have the manual dexterity that they would need. So the crossbow is kind of the dwarven preference, a bow on its side with a trigger that you can shoot. And they've invented the crossbow and the ballista. They specifically invented them maybe a century ago. The dragon mare. Interesting. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool, Shadowrunner. Yeah, the point is that, like, it's not clear exactly why. I think the conceit is that it's almost like a Flight of Dragons thing. They all get up and they fly away, and they're gone for a certain length of time, and then they come back. And it does seem to line up with the, like, emergence of Yogg every 999 years, or every 900 years. So there is believed to be some connection, but I like that idea, that a spontaneous, widespread premonition that there are threats to their wealth and power. Calling it the Dragon Mare is kind of cool, right? Because it's like, oh, I love that. Anyway, so Clan Bracebow is responsible for inventing crossbows and kind of crossbow technology and then introducing it to the rest of the world. That's kind of their claim to fame. And Dunia wants to employ them potentially to help her defeat Zaraska, the Red Widow, because, another Hobbit reference for you, Vaughn, they have a large ballista that is fixed to the top of their hold, a snow perch, that is similar to, I guess it appears only in the movie, but is similar to the wind lance that appears in the Hobbit, the second and third, not very good Hobbit movies. So again, very clear Hobbit references. The Hobbit is a big inspiration in Helm and Crown and Coombe in general, this kind of like big, grand dwarven kingdom of old. But today what we need to do is we need to figure out who is Clan Bracebow, what's their power structure, what are they about, what's their hold like, how do they get along with other clans, what's their whole kind of deal, because the characters will be soon going to go meet them and work with them to potentially slay this dragon, Zaraska, the Red Widow. So let's start with the things that we know about them already. We know about their specialty, we know about their seat, and we know a little bit about their relationship to other clans. So their specialty, as we said, when I design a clan, I kind of go through these different categories and design specifically, famous personages, their history, their materials, even as kind of like in broad strokes. So we can talk about it a little bit more later. So their specialty is their crossbows. Do I have a room for specialty? Hold on. As I said, they invented them. Let's go up to an underclan, because I think that's more of an underclan thing. Most of the elder clans don't really have specialties so much because they're so big. Here we go. Yeah. I just want to copy the format of it. So it's just the word and then parentheses to describe it. Got it. Yeah, Clan Bracebow. So crossbows are their specialty. They are responsible for inventing the first crossbows. So this campaign takes place at the very beginning of the second age of Antune. So it's kind of like late Roman, early medieval. Like we're kind of hedging into the Dark Ages, right? In most of the rest of the world, it's kind of like a post-antiquity period, right? A lot of the ships that people sail around in more resemble triremes than they do kind of like tall ships, right? We're sort of in almost a Greco-Roman-y, time period. So the crossbow at this period would be pretty rare and kind of specifically limited to dwarves, although obviously they trade for it and things like that. It's one of their big exports, especially during the war. Clan Bracebow are the original inventors of both the crossbow and the ballista. I like the idea too that it isn't like they invented it, right? But I don't think that they really benefited terribly much from it. Like they kind of take it as their personal arms and things like that. But I feel like they invented it almost in a way that like musicians sometimes get like get scammed out of their early work by predatory producers and stuff. It's like I think they invented the crossbow, but they're not quite like mercantile enough because they're like an underclan to really realize how profitable that could have been in any other context, right? Like they invented it, and then I just think a bunch of other societies like copied it. But technically, the first crossbows were called bracebows, and they came from. It's kind of cool if like the term is a bracebow of the bracebow, so maybe it's like not quite a crossbow. That's kind of cool. I wonder what do you guys think the difference is between a bracebow and a crossbow? In the bracebow, essentially a crossbow, or the first crossbow. First, like rudimentary crossbow. And I also need like a term for the wind lance. Good trigger mechanisms aren't easy to replicate. Exactly. I need a cool word for like I don't think ballista is a dwarven word. I think ballista was invented by a different culture. So like what would the dwarves call, what's the like common translation of the dwarven word for the ballista? If the crossbow is the bracebow, right? And what do we think the ballista, like the wind lance, is called? One you brace on your shoulder. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, maybe it's got like because I feel like the crossbow has the brace, right? Like for the most light crossbows do. Maybe it's got like almost like a thing that it like hooks around, right? That it's like more like a rocket launcher or something like that. That like the kickback is such that like it folds over the shoulder, or you strap it to your shoulder so it hangs there. Yeah, super awkward to carry around. I like that it isn't a crossbow. It's like this big cumbersome thunk thing, right? That's cool. A rudimentary ballista. The arrow checker. Yeah, I think it's into God, I wish we talked about this. We translated it in our language session the other day. And I think it's like small spear thrower is what it literally translates to in dwarven. So maybe we should go back to that and call it a bracebow in dwarven. But a bracebow resembles a crossbow. I almost want to look up like what's an early crossbow look like. But is large and cumbersome. Coiled metal wire. Like I wonder if you have to like crank it and then shoot it. That's kind of cool, right? So it's like it's what pulls the thing back rather than doing it with your hand. That the pressure is so much that you have to wind it. And then eventually like crossbows are invented by other cultures to be slimmer and quicker and easier to shoot, right? Bracebow string is so hard only a certain mechanism can be tightened. Oh, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm thinking, Jose, right? Like it's some kind of an apparatus, you have to wear it, right? It's like a minigun or whatever. Like it needs straps and you put it on. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But is large and cumbersome to fire. Perhaps it needs a harness. Perhaps it needs a crank. Yeah, I think that's cool. It's like very rudimentary. Ooh, Arbalist is cool too. We need a good name for the ballista. Like Arbalist is interesting, but I think an Arbalist is a kind of crossbow. Is that the early crossbow? I'm failing my history test today. My history check. I kind of want to look up, yeah, that like early crossbow. Pull it over here. Arbalist. Special mechanism. Yeah, that's right. That's the one that has the crank. Okay. Interesting, because the Arbalist is a late variation on the crossbow. So that would be backwards then, right? We would want it to be like an early version of the crossbow, which I'm not sure what an early version of the crossbow is. Early. Like, they were invented in the first millennia, BC. Earlier the 7th century in China. Interesting. I didn't know that. I knew the Chinese like had some famous and very effective crossbows, but I didn't realize they were that old. Yeah, wow. Medieval crossbow was called by many names, including crossbow itself. Most of these names derive from the word ballista. Yeah, I guess I knew they had ballistas in the ancient world. That's true. Yeah, the one they brace against the ground and crank it. I mean, like, we could do that, though. We could reverse engineer it and say that the bracebow has the crank, right? And that, like, later crossbows... An anchor on his back to the ground, avoid the recoil. That's kind of cool. I like that. I mean, I think the thing, though, is that, like, maybe that's what, if you're not a dwarf, I think the conceit is that, like, dwarves... I give my dwarves in 5th edition, or I have been, my NPC dwarves... some powers from 4th edition where like they don't get knocked back as far by effects. I think it was called Stand Your Ground in 4th. So I like the idea that like if you're not a dwarf, it throws you because your center of gravity is such. It's not even about how strong you are, it's about how tall you are, right? Like the characters are all these like cool elves and orcs. They're super tall and buff, but it doesn't matter because it's about your center of gravity, right? And if it's higher up, then you're more likely to get thrown. Yeah, that's cool. The release is so powerful. It knocks non-dwarves to the ground. Yeah, that's cool. I think you have to be a dwarf. And so like when they realize that the characters can't fire these things, they have to like be like, oh, okay, let's tie these weights around you. Yeah, what's like the earliest versions? History of crossbows. Thanks, Wikipedia. Oh wow, yeah, the one from the Qin Dynasty is really cool. I'm gonna put this one in the chat. It's just a Wikipedia page for history of crossbows, but the picture is cool. I think that's the opposite. That feels like a very like lightweight, like elven crossbow to me. Whereas I like them thinking of it as like, no, it needs to shoot harder and faster and like, you know what I mean? The Chinese one seems like it's more about speed. Ooh, the Korean giant naval crossbow is cool too. Look at that thing. That's kind of like the repeater, you know? That's awesome. Cool. Anyway, sorry, we're getting off track here. But yes, they make the bracebow, and the bracebow is a big, cumbersome thing, and it knocks dwarves over. Non-dwarves over. Nice job, Jose. Okay, what else do we know? We know their seat is called the Sunken... Nope, wrong one. I was thinking of a different place. Their seat is called Snow Perch. And Snow Perch is constructed... actually, we'll talk about their other clans first. So they're an underclan, and they are subservient to Cloud Peak, who we talked about several sessions ago. They're the kind of like lofty, sort of disdainful... literally fly around the kingdom in their flying castle clan. They're all about like traps and mechanisms and things like that. So it kind of makes sense that bracebows might be like descended from them, which is usually how the underclans work. It's usually like a Cloud Peak will want to go off and start their own clan, and so they kind of take their family and they go set up a new hold, usually with the permission of the Thane. So they're probably descended from the Cloud Peaks. But the question is, like, how do they get along with them? So right here we have too concerned with their sky-high luxury to bother with the day-to-day ruling of their underclans. They were unpopular among their subordinates who were forced to fend for themselves. Which I think, considering the situation of what's going on, right, where, like, Clan Cloud Peak, like, Clan Bracebow Oh yeah, that's right. They had that relationship with Axebite. Okay, so we have two clans we know they have relationships with. We know that they have a relationship with Cloud Peak, who is their elder clan, and they have a relationship with Axebite, who is sort of like an ally. So Clan Axebite, we'll scroll back up here. Underclan, or like, they're not rivals, but they're allies. Yeah. Come on. My shift key has been really annoying lately. Okay. Oh, that's cool, Jose. A contraption that assembles different types of bolts. Kind of how modern submarines arm the torpedoes for safety. Yeah, that's crazy. But it's like, that seems like so much more advanced than it would need to be, right? That feels like a later invention. I love that idea, but it feels like, if we're talking like Roman technology, yeah, they're dwarves, I guess, but it feels like, why would you go all the way out? I mean, maybe that's the point, though, is that they're dwarves and that they would do the crazier thing rather than the more logical thing, you know? Yeah, I'll think about it. I think that's kind of cool. So Axebite, is they're loggers. They're kind of, it's called the Shadowwood at the time of the camp of Helm and Crown, but in Menagerie, it's still just called the Firewood. Clan Axebite were staunch allies of Clan Bracebow, and when they returned to discover their hold, blah, 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 they fled to Snowperch, the hold of their old ally. So it's basically like, there's a mountain, because there's a lot of mountains in Coombe, and at the foot of the mountain, in the middle of this forest, is Axebite's hold, Timber Hall. And it's unique because it's one of the few dwarven holds that's made out of wood. And Axebite are loggers, and they trade their wood to other clans, for the forges and things. But the mountain that they're constructed at the base of has a staircase that goes up it, called the Killing Stair. And that stair goes from the ground basically up the face of the mountain, with a few switchbacks, but it's like alarmingly straight. And then because it's the Cloud Peaks, these are those mountains that have wing rock in them, so that the tips of the mountains float above, or like the peaks of the mountains float above the base of the mountain. So there's like, you come to a certain height, and then where the wing rock is found, it's disconnected, and there's like a gap of 100 feet or so between the mountain and the peak. And so the staircase, the Killing Stair, goes up and like bridges the floating peak with the mountain below, and then there on top of that floating peak is Snowperch, and that is the hold of Clan Bracebow. So what I think that kind of tells us about them, that's what we know so far. What that sort of tells us about them is that they do have an ally in Axebite. Those two clans are famously allied, though maybe they're not at this time. Maybe they're like, because it's 1,000 years, right? They might not, things might go, poorly. Yeah, there are a lot of mountains in Coombe. Dude, I haven't posted my map. One of these days I should show you guys my map. Tons. Because there's the Range of Sovereigns, yep, there's the Phalanx, there's the Clatterdowns is a mountain range, there's the Silverhorns is one, there's the Cracked Rim, there are the Mountains of Vapor, and there's the, oh god, what's the other one? The something hills, I think, and they're like huge mountains. The dwarves are like, oh, those are just hills. But we know that their hold is really isolated, so it suggests to me that they don't necessarily get along with maybe their ideal, right, under their philosophy is isolation, right? It's like being above things and looking down. So if that's the case, then it kind of feels like their relationship with Cloud Peak would almost be like, they might be one of the few clans that like would get along okay with Cloud Peak, that they have like a similar mentality. I kind of like that like, but maybe things have soured recently. Yeah, and that's the thing with dwarves, right, is that like 1,000 years sounds ridiculous to humans, right? There's the difference between us and the Vikings. Right, like the Battle of Hastings was like 1,000 years ago, but to dwarves, you can live to be 250, 500 years old, right? That's not that long. And they, unlike elves who are very changeable, like every 100 years will kind of reinvent themselves, the dwarves are the opposite, and they're like deeply stubborn and kind of unchangeable. So 1,000 years is so much time for the rest of the world, but it's you know, it's like 100 years to us. It's like it's a chunk of time for sure if you think about where we were 100 years ago, but it's not not nearly as severe to them. Descended from Clan Cloud Peak. Clan Bracebow once admired their elder clan, and comparatively speaking, ties between them were strong. With the coming of the dragon, however, these relations have begun to strain. I think that's cool, right? That like they were sort of the good subjects, right? Like the loyal underclan. But with the dragon's arrival, as the dragons came out, like if the Cloud Peaks did the thing the Cloud Peaks do, which is ignore the problems of their underclans, right? That it makes sense that a clan that was normally like, you know, kind of loyal and good at paying taxes and stuff like that would suddenly start to reconsider that relationship if they're not receiving the aid they had hoped from Clan Cloud Peak. I kind of like that. And I think you do the opposite thing with the Clan Axebite, that they would have considered Axebite to be like they would have considered them to be kind of like dirty wastrels, right? Like that live in the dirty barbarians that live in this like wooden hold. But through the course of the adventure, you know, they're forced to kind of the course of this like dragon ordeal, they are forced to learn to work together with the Axebites. That's kind of cool. Yeah, so it's 250 extra years to make the masterpiece of your life, precisely. So I think we'll play rival for now, but I think that they like reluctant ally. Reluctant ally. Bracebows and Axebites have long feuded. The Bracebows considering themselves superior to the lowly Axebites. The dragon's arrival, however, considering themselves superior to the lowly Axebites. With the dragon's arrival, however, the two clans may be forced to work together. Two rival clans may be forced to work together to solve the problem. Their leadership will not. Great. I kind of think that's cool. So what I was thinking was Axebite has this wooden hall, and I like the idea of kind of several times throughout their history, they sort of pay the price for that. You know, they have like a, their hall burns down. It's burnt down at the beginning of Helm and Crown, because it was burned down by the Kilariel, the sort of like fire-worshipping elves of the Shatterwood. But I like the idea that even in this timeline, like their hold has just been burned down by the dragon. So it's like every time you check in with the Axebites, they're like, hold has just been burned. Zoraska, like Timber Hall. After Zoraska burned their hall, Clan Axebite was forced to flee up the Killing Stair and take refuge in Snow Perch. So that kind of already tells me a little bit about some of the politics at play here, right? Because Zoraska, I should say. It's a Z. Zoraska the White, not the White Widow. Zoraska the Red Matron. Urazanoth, the White Dragon from Helm and Crown, is named the White Widow. Yeah, so I think that kind of already tells you a little bit about their politics if they are reluctantly allied to Axebite. If they were rivals before, right, then, and they let them in, they, like, if Axebite came knocking on their door and was like, you know, the dragon, help,
and they were permitted inside, then that's a very undwarven thing to do. If someone comes knocking, to open your door to them, dwarves don't do that. And so I like the idea of, but that's what's interesting, right? So that they've done it in this case, and why? Does it mean that the axe bites can provide something? Are the Bracebows trying to squeeze them for more wood or better trading relations or something in exchange for this refuge? Are the Bracebows maybe led by someone who is more sympathetic to them? And, you know, maybe there's some tension there that, like, whoever the Thane is of Clan Bracebow doesn't, like, permits them in, but the Congress doesn't like it. Or maybe that's interesting, maybe it's vice versa. Maybe it's the Congress. Well, but I think the Peer Council wouldn't have say on this. So if you don't know how Dwarven politics work, every clan and the kingdom in general has two governing bodies. There's the monarchy, or like the executive branch, essentially. So in the kingdom, it's the king or the queen, the sovereign. And then but in a clan like this, it's the Thane, who is similar to like a duke or a count or whatever, right? Like they are subservient to the Thane of their elder clan, and then the Thane of the elder clan is subservient to the monarch. So you have that. You have like the executive power, right? The person with the crown. And then you also have either the Peer Council or the Peer Congress. So in a clan, the Peer Council is a large sort of legislative body that is made up of, almost more like a judiciary body, I guess, that is made up of all of the clan's masters, right? You can apply to join the council. In a small clan, you know, you might have a dozen or a couple dozen. In a large clan, like an elder clan, you could have several hundred. And they vote basically on like what the sovereign or the Thane is allowed to spend like the budget on, essentially, right? The Thane will propose, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do that. And then like Congress, the Peer Council decides, okay, you can do these two, but not that one, sort of a thing, right? We have X amount of resources. This is what you're allowed to go and build. But they only have purview over projects like that in ways that the yield, like the clan's money, essentially is spent. So, like, they can't dictate foreign policy. They can't dictate a lot of that stuff. And some councils are more efficacious than others, right? Like, sometimes the council is in the sovereign's pocket. Sometimes the council has the sovereign over a barrel. Like, it really depends on the individual political, like, situation, right? So, that's one thing we need to figure out here. I kind of like the idea that because they're coming in with Dunya, the queen, like, they're working with her, she would sort of function as almost like a Thane, you know, while she's there. She's sort of the, like, you know, it's like when King Robert goes to Winterfell, right? She's like on royal progress. So she would really ostensibly have the authority there, even though they're in the house of this other Thane. So I like the notion of that maybe being some conflict, that the Thane, the current Thane of Clan Bracebow, doesn't want Dunya there and doesn't want the axe bites there and is opposed to it, but the Peer Council voted to do it, right? The Peer Council, yeah, but could they vote to do that? Like, maybe the Peer Council supports it, but like the Thane would have the ultimate say. I'm not sure. That's interesting. You're fearlessly recognized for the betterment of the clan or of dwarfkind. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like master could mean a lot of different things. Master is yes, it denotes someone who's like a master of their craft, but you could be like a war master, right? You could be a master of a number of different things. A lore master could count, right? Depending on what the clan values and who trained you. So the politics here, we definitely have a Thane. And we definitely have a Peer Council, but then we also have, I think, like I like the idea of like refugees, and then we have the Queen as well. So I kind of like the notion that like coming to Snow Perch when they get here is this like almost like Nest of Vipers kind of a plot, right? Where it's like there's all these different factions and they're all kind of trying to maneuver around each other here, but it's all kind of small scale. Like, I don't think Clan Bracebow is very big. I think we're talking about 200 to 300 dwarves total. right? Plus the company will have, oh, then there's the mercenaries,
right? Like then the company comes with their whole army, which is about 250 soldiers as well.
So it's like all of these different political players kind of getting involved. Where do they stand? Who keeps who in check? That kind of a thing. So maybe it's a thing where when the party gets there. So a little bit of adventure background. The party has 2 dragons to slay. They've got the there's a younger one, Tyrodax, and then there's Zaraska, the one over here. And they split their forces. They sent the main body of the company to Snowperch and stuff like that to go get ready to fight Zaraska, while the queen, a handful of her like chosen dwarves, and the adventurers, the 4 party members, went to go hunt the younger dragon and to catch it unawares. So they are separated from the mercenaries for a while. They're not going to see them for a couple of days at the most. So I like the idea that the mercenaries, maybe both Clan Axebite and the mercenaries, when they show up, are denied access to Snowperch. That if the Thane has the power and the Thane is opposed to these people coming in, the Snowperch wouldn't let them in, right? Yeah, the players can tip the balance but not take over. Exactly. I think the PCs are the thing that pushes it over. So the mercenaries. Let's start with the refugees. After Zaraska destroyed their home, many of the displaced Axebite dwarves, displaced clan, sought refuge. It says to seek refuge in Snowperch. Sought refuge in the defensible Snowperch, but were denied. By Thane. When the commander and the company arrive at the Killing Stair, they too are denied entry by Thane. So what's cool about this is that like that means when they get there, when the party rejoins the company, having been separated for several days, the company is like entrenched at the foot of the mountain and has made a bit of a camp to help defend them against the dragon and the dragon's like kobold servants. So I like that idea that like the party had sent the company to go do this. Like, hey, go meet Bracebow, get set up, get ready for us to come and deal with this dragon. But then they are unable to do, like, by the time they get there, like, they discover there's this blockage. And that, like, while the company, the commander, Chimera, as she's known, has, most of her army with her, she can't really, like, march it up this, like, the Killing Stair is, impossible to storm, essentially, right? Yeah, okay, I like that. So then what is the Thane's deal? The Thane is protective of their, the Thane is protective and the word I'm looking for, suspicious of intruders. They don't want their hold flooded with strangers, especially not foreign mercenaries. So the other big thing that I wanted to play with was the idea of there's a disease, because there's always a disease in my games. There's a disease called the Black Bloat, which is kind of a byproduct of the Night Wars. It's like an undead kind of necrotic wasting sickness, and it has spread across the world, and the party has encountered it before and has dealt with it before. But at this point in Coom, even though it's so far away from where the war took place because there are so many human refugees, the bloat is a problem in Coom right now. It wasn't something that I intended to necessarily do,
I liked the idea of doing a campaign set in the aftermath of the Night Wars, but then I realized after we'd already started it that like, oh, the Black Bloat is a thing. It should be around. And so now a lot of the game is about disease and pandemics and quarantines. Wasn't necessarily something that I intended, but here we are. And so I wanted there to be, but there's some drama in Coombe because there's boy, this is a lot to explain, I'm now realizing. At this point in history, there's an organization called the Mysteryarchy, which is basically like an organized Catholic church sort of a thing. But it's got this like heavy emphasis on like sacred geometry and like secrets and secretism, which is a dwarven belief that the dwarven religion shouldn't be shared with anyone who's not dwarven, right? And they are very influential, and they wield a lot of power, and they do so for like 500 years. So they're a big institution in Coombe at this time. By the time of Helm and Crown, the Mysteryarchy has long been abolished, but at this time, they are a big deal. And one of the ways that they come to power is that they have the cure to Black Bloat. Lesser Restoration will do it, but Lesser Restoration is not an especially common spell at this time. Divine Magic in general isn't very common because the dwarves sort of keep a hold of it. Other cultures have religions, but they don't really access it in the same way. Like, they're only beginning to realize that they can pray to the gods and get material power, whereas the dwarves have known that for a very long time. Point being that the Mysteryarchy has kind of like a hold on the cure to Black Bloat. And so they will cure you, they will help you, but only if you basically submit to like Mysteryarchy teachings. If you send your priest to go be trained in the ways, and then usually that priest ends up being replaced anyway. So there are a lot of underclans who are stubborn about this and refuse to send, or like allow the Mysteryarchy in because they don't really believe in their teachings necessarily, kind of like dogmatic schism stuff. Which means that the underclans are getting like ravaged by the disease because they're being denied the cure, right? As you can see, this is like, I did not, when I designed all of this, it was not, COVID was not happening. But now this is the time period we're in, and this is what's happening. It's like, oh, well, the Black Bloat's going on, so we got to talk about the bloat, and it's turned out to be very topical, not something I intended. So I would like the bloat to be a factor here too. Like, I like the idea of maybe that being the concern or something, but like what's tricky is that the party has a number of clerics that are outside of the Mysteryarchy and can cure the bloat, so they could be kind of a stabilizing influence if they could be persuaded to let them in, right? Yeah, Dwarven Society of Freemasons. Yeah, absolutely. So I like the idea of the Peer Council, or the Peer Council is tricky because it seems like the Thane would have complete authority to just shut the gates. The Thane is a lot like the American president in that they have, like, sort of foreign policy weight, right? They're able to say, like, no, this is how we're going to deal with this country. You know, only Congress can, like, declare war or whatever, but the president has kind of, like, unilateral power to order drone strikes or do whatever they want in other countries. And I think the Thane has a similar role in that, like, their relationship to the outside world is totally up to them, and the Peer Council can't really vote on it. So it's this weird question of, like, I like the idea of there being some tension. Maybe that tension comes from Dunya, that, like, Dunya shows up and Dunya outranks the Thane, so she's able to say, like, no, you have to let me in, right? And the Thane kind of capitulates to that. I think that is kind of what makes sense to me, that, like, when Dunya and the players arrive, Dunya is able to command the Thane to open the gates to them, the company, and the refugees. I think Black Bloat. I think that outside, Black Bloat is rampant among the refugees, but the few dwarves in the company who have the sickness, or who have the cure, haven't quite been able to remove it. It spreads too fast. So yeah, that's what's so interesting about Dungeons and Dragons medicine, right? If you think about like spells like Lesser Restoration, right, that just like instantly remove a disease from someone, that seems great, right? Because you know it's a lot better than our vaccines or our system that we have in the real world, right? But what's interesting about Lesser Restoration is it doesn't confer immunity. It just removes the disease from you. So if I have if I have corona, right, and if I catch COVID, and then a cleric heals me of it, then I no longer have it. It's gone for sure. But if I go outside not wearing a mask, I catch it again. So in some ways it's better, and in some ways it's worse. And I like the idea that like the party has access to healing, but there are contexts into which they can't keep up, right? Like I want that to be kind of a background hum. Like they're probably okay, but they have to be very careful about their application of spells and stuff, right? Yeah, it's a single target, and it's a second level spell, so they have some clerics in the company, but like maybe 10, and they probably have access to second level spells, but not tons of them, right? And so a lot of that's abstracted in terms of like what level are NPC spellcasters, but I think it's reasonable to assume they don't have infinite uses of it, enough to like eradicate it from the whole population. Yeah, okay, cool. So I like that being a concern, that like you need to take these people in because they're being like attacked by kobolds and stuff, right? Like, and the dragon is making sorties. Yeah, that's cool. Zoraska. What's worse, the dragon is making regular sorties against the entrenched mercenaries and refugees, pressing them even harder. So all of this is like before they get there, right? So the peer council, I think, broadly supports representing the rest of the clan. The peer council, let me just call it the peer council. The peer council broadly supports Dunya and anyone who can slay the dragon, meaning the players. If Thane, like Dunya is able to, yeah, because like I like the idea that Dunya essentially has the will of the clan, but not the will of the Thane. So the Thane can potentially sabotage or like try to obstruct her in some way in her plan. I like that. That's cool. Okay, I mean that feels like pretty political, like interesting. There's a lot of factions there, right? It's like the players, and then the Thane, and then the refugees, and then the Queen, right? And the clan, and like Black Bloat, and the dragon, and like there's a lot going on there. I think that's cool. Let's see. Even a third level paladin would have divine health and lay on hands and quickly exhaust the capacity to help, right? That's what I mean. You know what I mean? It's like you could do it for like a party, but for a clan, for like a tribe, I think you could like stay in a stalemate where like you cure someone and cure someone else, and then you catch it, okay, and then you cure it, but then you give it to someone. You know what I mean? Like it's this weird cycle. I think that makes sense to me. Where it's because I don't want to like they specifically hired clerics that way they could help kind of deal with bloat if it happened, but I don't want it to be a thing where it just like solves the problem completely. Great. So let's talk about their philosophy then, because I think we have a good sense from the politics. Like,
it seems like the Thane being so like isolationist suggests that that's how they are, but I'm trying to figure out like, is the Thane a traditionalist? And like I think that makes sense. If the Thane is like directly descended from the Cloud Peaks, and the Cloud Peaks are all about isolation.
Yeah, so let's put isolation as their philosophy. How do I format these again? Okay. Cloud Peaks is about luxury. Isolation is the philosophy of Clan Bracebow. The only way to remain safe is to remain isolated by constructing their hold atop the mountain, they can remain undisturbed for centuries in their fastness. He doesn't have a way to locate the disease source. Ah, there you go. That's cool. Thank you. That's good to know. They, even more than other dwarves, they mistrust strangers and outsiders and always prefer to see things and keep people at a distance. I like the idea. It's that Hawkeye. There's this one line that Hawkeye has in Avengers where he's like watching the scene, like early on. I think when you first meet him, he's like up on a ledge or a balcony or whatever, and Fury's like, I thought I told you to keep a close eye on this, and he says, I see better from a distance. And I like that idea of that being kind of a Bracebow notion. It's like an archer notion, right? It's like you see better if you're looking at everything, taking the whole picture in. And if you're more removed from it. So like you can even do small things where like they don't like to stand too close to you when you talk, right? And that could be just a prudent practice. Post-war disease isolation, the old standby. Exactly. I think that's kind of their philosophy. But I like that's maybe going a little bit, right? Like maybe that was the way they used to think, and now seeing the dragon and seeing all this happen, like I like the notion that Axbite starts off as a rival, but that by the time Helm and Crown comes along, they're allied. That like this event is kind of what made those two clans sort of partner up. Because then it does give you some change. It's not like it's a status quo situation from Helm and Crown, but it's still doing it on a glacial scale. Okay, cool. I think that's all good. Let's talk about their seat a little bit. You know, we might say the seat for last, because I think the more I can develop that as a location, the better. So let's talk about their materials. This will be quick. So, Cloud Peaks have alabaster, opal, and wing rock. Extremely rare and magical mineral, even a trace amount of wing rock and levitate, astonishing weight. So I think they do have wing rock, but I don't think they can mine it because it's what keeps their like thing afloat. So I think they don't touch the wing rock. The only place that has it in a lot of in a great numbers are Cloud Peak. Alabaster, soft mineral, great pillars of gleaming white stone. That's kind of cool. Most common form of gemstone found in the roof beams. So yeah, I think they have both of these. Nope. They have alabaster and opal in their materials, but no wing rock. Whether the Thane changes or is replaced. Yeah, I mean, between the games, certainly it would be, because it's 1,000 years, right? Yeah, okay, cool. So let's talk about the history. So the ancient history, I actually think, wasn't that long ago. I kind of think that the Bracebow split off, like, in living memory. Is the Thane... Like, I kind of think that the Bracebow Thane is a Cloud Peak, right? Like, they started their own clan, but I think that originally they were a Cloud Peak. I think it's been like a generation since they split. Yeah, so there's not actually that much history. Let me do a dice roll. Just to get the gender. Male. Okay, cool. The current Thane of Clan Bracebow was born a Cloud Peak, skilled inventor. He broke off from his elder clan to make his own hold, and this is still more like description on him after the Night Wars. So, like, within the past 10 years. This is, like, a brand new clan. I kind of think that's cool. It's actually not ancient history, then. I mean, it would be in the context of Helm and Crown, but... So let's talk about the famous personages. We might be done pretty soon here. Like, you know, we gotta talk about Snow Perch, and I want to dive deep into exactly how it's laid out and some cool locations, but... We want to only do like an hour and a half tonight. So we definitely have the Thane. But then, like, who else do we have as characters that they can meet, right? Like, there should be somebody who kind of represents the rest of the clan in some capacity. You know, like a peer council representative or whatever. Peer. Maybe, yeah, then maybe like the inventor. Who is like in charge of it? Ooh, what if it's a thing where like the Thane didn't actually invent the like isn't the primary inventor of the crossbow, but their spouse is, right? So it's like the Thane's like wife or husband or whatever. Yeah, let me roll that. See if it's a wife or a husband. But I think that's kind of cool if it's like the person who's in charge actually isn't the inventor. The inventor just spends their time focused on making new crossbows. Yeah, it is a wife. So the Thane's wife, inventor, is the one who actually is clearly the one who actually invented the crossbow, invented the bracebow, and is constantly tinkering on new designs. They don't care much for politics and are somewhat kept in a tower. Like not exactly. Like definitely the inventor has enough autonomy to, like, if they want to get involved, they can. It's not like the Thane is preventing them from being involved. But there's this element of like the inventor would rather be just like tinkering. You know, that they're distractible, almost like who's the one in She-Ra? Entrapta, right? Where it's like they're mainly focused on fixing and building and constructing and new models. They're not as concerned with the day-to-day politics of the clan. And because of how dwarven marriages work, right? Like they're seen as like artistic collaborations as much as they are like romantic partnerships. So because the two of them were married, it's like the crossbow or the bracebow was seen as something that they did together, right? And so the Thane ended up being the more political and kind of taking over the political power, whereas the inventor is still the, like, I mean, you could even maybe reverse it and say that, like, the inventor is the Thane. No, I think this is fine. I think it's okay if it's the Thane's wife who, like, clearly invented it, and that, like, not that the Thane didn't help, but, like, it wasn't the driving force behind it. Yeah, okay. So, a Cloud Peak who married inventor, who might not have even been a Cloud Peak, right? Potentially a petty dwarf, or from like potentially a member of a dwarf of clan Quicklime, who is another underclan of Cloud Peak, and they're like the trap makers. Yeah, that's cool. Was originally a member of clan Quicklime, and was clearly the one who actually invented the bracebow. Constantly tinkering on new designs. She doesn't care much for politics. And lets her husband run the clan. Allows her husband to run the clan without much oversight. Yeah, that's cool. Who married inventor. Thane is the political head of clan Bracebow. While he's credited with founding the new clan, he's insecure about his position and seeks to maintain clan or like Cloud Peak sort of virtues of isolation in particular. And it's like Cloud Peak is isolated, but not in the same way, where they're not as like proud of it. Like, I think if you asked a Cloud Peak, like, you know, are you involved in the life of your underclans, they'd be like, of course we are. Whereas, like, I think that the clan Bracebow would be like, no, we're not, right? Like, we don't care. We're just doing our own thing. So then we need someone who kind of represents the peer council in a way, right? Like, they wouldn't be in charge of it by any means. They would kind of be the, like, the NPC that the characters interact with that represents that. Hey, what's up, Christopher? Yo, thanks for coming, man. Nice to see you. We're kind of coming up on the end here. We're just doing a short stream tonight. We're talking about Clan Bracebow, a dwarven clan for my home game that invented crossbows. My instinct is to make them like a priest, but we have so many like bad priests in the campaign that I worry that they would be yeah, that wouldn't really work. So let's maybe not do that. We need like a hit here. So this is someone who's a member of the peer council, which means they're a master at some craft. I don't want them to be like a crossbow maker because I feel like we have that in the inventor. But there's someone who is sort of like represents the opposition essentially to the Thane. I think they should be. Oh, let's just roll. Whether they're male or female. Female. Okay. Yeah, that was my instinct. I need like a hit on like a concept here. I like the idea of like a powerlessness that like they want to rein in the Thane, but they don't quite have the authority to, and so they sort of like appeal to Dunya, you know. Hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks for coming by, man. Nice to see you. It's been a while. I like a helplessness thing where like they want to do more but they can't, and so they sort of like cleave to Dunya because she represents someone who's more sympathetic to their views, and that like she can get the peer council to vote the way that she wants if it's a matter of convincing them. Like we would almost have to, I almost have to make that a point then narratively that there's like a thing that they have to convince the council of, so that way they can collaborate, right? Like, oh yeah, Dunya wanted to make dragon slaying arrows. Maybe that's like part of the politics of it. Let's go to the peer council. We'll go to Dunya down here in politics and say Dunya wants to make slaying arrows. Dunya proposes the clan make slaying arrows. Clan make some dragon slaying bolts, but it would require a substantial use of the clan's resources. The Thane box. The Thane wields enough influence over the council if the Thane box and wields enough influence over the council to prevent the vote. The players have to convince a few dwarven masters to switch their votes. So then it makes the peer council matter, right? Like that they can go over the Thane's head if they can get the peer council to back it. And I like the contrast there, that like they got into trouble with the peer congress and the mystriarchy earlier in the campaign, but they're on the side of the queen, and then here they end up kind of being on the side of the council, right, and the legislative body rather than the executive. Like the Thane is the obstruction, and the council is what lets them do it. This is probably way too inside baseball for you guys. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to like alienate anybody with like deep discussions of dwarven politics, but it's trying to figure out like how do you honor the politics and honor the world building while still making it like a dynamic adventure and not just have it be something that like the players like watch as I explain, you know. So then this member of the peer council is an artisan or a craftsperson of some kind, a master. I kind of like, maybe she's the war master. The war master of the clan. Because that gives her like an actual position. Hey, what's up, Vaughn? Decisions and democracy. Tell me about it, dude. She leads the clan guard. The Bracebow clan guard. Bracebow clan guard. And wants to fight the dragon. Wants to support Dunya. But feels hamstrung by the Thane, and their executive power. Executive power. The PCs influencing certain council members can domino the resentment later on. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, how long that'll happen, I don't know. But I do have to figure out, like, at some point what the Thane's, like, little tactic is, right? How does the Thane get back at them, essentially, if they just kind of, like, undermine them? Great. Okay, so those are the famous personages. I like that. We have the Thane, who's the executive power. We have the peer, the War Master, the leader of the peer council. We have the inventor, who's the wife of the Thane and the one who designed it. I think the inventor is the one that they like deal with when they're working on the ballista, right? And I guess they wouldn't be arrows; they'd be like bolts, right? Slaying bolts. Great. So the last thing we have to do then for tonight, before we can end, which I think right a little bit early, is to talk about Snow Perch. Their hold. This might take a while, so maybe this will be the rest of the stream. Yeah. Grayskull, Bracebow. I guess Grayskull. Yeah, I see that. Grayskull, Bracebow, Grayskull. I do talk very fast as well, so that's something I have heard a lot. Is I need to slow down, so that's probably partially on me. Grayskull, Bracebow. That's funny. Yeah, now I can't not hear it when I do it. So we have summary. And we have design, history, and locations. Design, history, and locations. So Snow Perch, as I said, is a extremely defensible hold, kind of inspired by like the Eyrie in Game of Thrones, right? Where it's like basically impregnable because of its positioning. Obviously, very susceptible to aerial attack, but from the ground, like it's even harder to attack than the Eyrie. Summary, design, and then history, locations. Okay. History and locations. So in terms of history, there's actually not much because like they built this relatively recently. Snow Perch is one of the most recent holds in Coom. Possibly not even quite finished. Possibly still in construction in some areas. It doesn't have much established history and is still determining its identity, right? Like how big is it and that kind of stuff. Okay, cool. So summary: an impregnable fortress atop. Impregnable fortress. I'll just name that mountain. Atop one of the roof beams, which are the name of these like mountains with the floating peaks. The roof beams. Snow Perch is the seat of Clan Bracebow and is famous. It's famous for the killing stare. The only access point from the lower mountain to the floating peak. A thin staircase that serves as the only access point from the lower mountain to the floating peak. Great. So that's kind of also the design. Bristling with So I want to think of some cool locations, but first let's do the design. To reach Snow Perch, one must climb the killing stair. One must climb the killing stair, which winds its way up the mountain. Winds its way up the mountain for one section, about 100 feet in height. The stair is not connected to either mountain or peak the entire way. Crossbows and ballistas are aimed at any who approach, making assault impossible. And the classic argument is idea of caution versus fear at the core of a dwarven tenant. What is precious, not embracing the other tenant of facing life with courage? Yeah, for sure, right? Like, are you too fearful? Or are you too brave? The dwarves in Coom are all about defense. They're all about, not letting anything through the defenses. Letting them, like, it's better to, like, it's better for the enemy to break themselves against your defenses than it is to ride out and meet the enemy. That's 100% a thing. Great. So what do we need here? So we need some cool locations. So obviously, like, the Killing Stair is the big one. Let's do like 5 or 10 locations. The Killing Stair is the big one. And I'll describe it more a little bit. There's also, like, whatever the Wind Lance is. They have, like, a big crossbow on the summit. And it's funny because, like, I wanted Dunia using it to be, like, a little bit, like, not what they were expecting it for. Like, they didn't design it to fight dragons necessarily. But I couldn't quite figure out, like, why that would be. Like, what else do you need a giant ballista on top of your mountain for? And I like, too, this idea that, like, there's no reason to make Snow Perch this impregnable. There just isn't, right? They just do it because it's the thing to do. They're almost like preppers or something, right? Like, there's this element of, like, you're not going to catch me off guard kind of a thing where it's like, okay, but who's fighting you? Who are your enemies? Like, they didn't build it with an enemy in mind. They just built it because, that was the thinking. They don't want to be bothered by anyone. So there's the Wind Lance thing. There's the Killing Stair. I would like to think of like obviously they'd have to have like usual dwarven spaces like the Thane's Hall and the Commons and workshops and stuff. But like, what are some unique locations in this hold? So it's like a mountain peak right above a mountain with like 100-foot gap. The mountain's down here, and then it flattens out, and then it's the peak above it, and the staircase goes from the like lower mountain up to the peak. On the top near the summit is the giant crossbow that can swing around. Maybe not the exact top, but it's on the upper levels of the hold. We've got the stair that comes up. There would definitely be like a workshop for the inventor. So like Inventor's Workshop is a location. Inventor's Workshop. There would be Commons. Thane's Hall. Killing Stair, the Wind Lance. So let's try to think of like let's describe these, try to think of like some cool things about them. Like Commons are just commons, right? But like what's the description of it? Let's go to the seat. In the Roman legions were famous for building a base while laying down the highways across the empire. Nothing shoddy. Yeah, exactly, right. Ring forts. It's the castles of Hungry Rock. Ooh, a proving ground along with the workshop. What do you mean by a proving ground, Alan? I can see like archery practice, right? Like a shooting. Ooh, yeah, like definitely a shooting range. I like that. A shooting range. I can also see like the workshop having like a testing, like almost like a James Bond situation where it's like a bunch of dummies that like she tests the crossbows out on. So the Killing Stair climbs from the lower mountain to the peak and is extremely treacherous, open to the wind, and without railing. Positioned above the hold stands, I still need a name for this, stands the Wind Lance. Yeah, he tests out for practice. Yeah, I like that. Stands the Wind Lance, a massive ballista that was the pet project of Inventor, and is used to deliver messages. Like I think if the Thane's wife, this inventor is kind of a little bit scatterbrained, kind of a contrapta or entrapta sort of a way, that like it makes sense to me that they would have this just gargantuan ballista that like they don't really use for anything. Again, it wasn't designed to kill dragons. It was just like she made it because she was bored, and now she like sends like letters to her pen pals across the kingdom. I think it's enchanted, so you can point it somewhere, right, and look down like the scope, and then you can shoot it, and it will shoot it clear across Coombe, and then it like finds the person it's sent to, and then it like thuds into, assuming that they're outside, like thuds into a tree or a wall or a rock or whatever near them. You know, it's like totally overtly magical, and the idea that it's like also completely arbitrary. Like, couldn't you just use sending? But no, she has to build this gargantuan ballista to deliver letters to her pen pals. Like, I think that's fine. Inventor's Workshop and Testing Ground. Inventor, like, I think below the ballista, below the wind lance, and that's not even like a considered part of the defense of Snow Perch. Ooh, they have to have like crenellations or like battlements, and like the guest. Oh yeah, the guest gate and the battlements and stuff. Guest gate. Is Inventor's Hall or Inventor's Workshop, where she tinkers with various Bracebow designs, including a test range for various. Oh, we already have that, including a test range for shooting. The guest gate. Once, well, maybe actually we'll put the guest gate, like, just rearrange this a little bit, put it up here. Once you climb the killing stair, you must pass through the guest gate, which bristles with arrow slits and murder holes, as per usual. So what's the, like, yeah, it has to test trick ballista bolts, absolutely. What's the, so like a lot of dwarven guest gates. So a guest gate is the term of like the door to which non-dwarves would come to. I mean, I think with what's interesting is that with the killing, or with Snow Perch, that's the only entrance. So even dwarves go through. But historically, guest gates usually have some kind of big, clunky looking, or not clunky, some big like showy trap, right, to like help discourage people from attacking. So yeah, that's cool. Sending is 25 words though. Yeah. Ooh, the messenger is a cool name for it. I kind of like that it's just called the messenger. Yeah, dude, that's great. The messenger. That they wouldn't think of it as a weapon. It was just like a weird like science project that the inventor made. So what do we think the trap is? Like, what is the like the kind of and I think for dwarves it's usually like almost like an art piece or like a curiosity piece, right? Like, hey, this is the trap that we have in our main foyer, right? It's like a conversation piece, right? It's like there to be like, oh, this is how we do it. Like Horn Hollow, the one that's the centerpiece of the dwarven campaign, has a thing where like the floor has like, there are all these like doors in Horn Hollow that rotate. They have like carvings on them, and you like spin them around. And so there's a when you come in, the floor has a big carving on it, but when you step on it, it rotates, so it flips you around and drops you into a pit and then locks you in. What do we think the like big like conversation the conversation piece trap is at the center of Snow Perch? I gotta go shoot the messenger. That's so good. Yeah. Oh my god, that's perfect. I love it. I gotta go shoot the messenger. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. For sure. That's fucking amazing. Nice. Good work, both of you. That's like team effort, right? That's like Shadownerd's name and then like Alan with the joke. Beautiful. Don't shoot the messenger. I love it. Cool. That's marvelous. Marvelous. What's this trap? I'm trying to think. Like, what's their thing? Their thing is like falling. I mean, is the trap that like yeah, I think they can like retract or like drop the stairs. Yeah, I think that's the big trap. The killing stair can be dropped if needed. The staircase, or the stretch of stair between Snow Perch and the mountain can be dropped if needed. High five. Yeah, get the regular bolts as a message. Yeah, sending a message. When the characters arrive, it is dropped. Like the Thane would have dropped it to prevent them from coming and going. Okay, cool. So the commons. So this is an area where the dwarves like hang out and drink and do whatever. What's the cool Google workplace thing that they do there, right? Like what's unique about this one? Because I like every dwarven hold to have like kind of an architectural curiosity in sort of each one of their rooms, right? Or decorative thing or whatever it is. I think the Thane's Hall is notable because the Thane's Hall, the Thane's Throne, or in the hall, in the Thane's Hall, the throne floats a few feet off the ground, or floats a foot off the ground, thanks to the wing rock in it. So like because he was a cloud peak, right? He had a little bit of wing rock as a heirloom or whatever to the tiny sliver of wing rock at its base. New wares demonstration. Yeah, that's cool. I'm trying to think like decoratively what's their thing. Commons is like the feasting hall and the drinking place and where people like hang out. You can go work there too if you like bring your projects out into the commons. I mean, it could also just be the shooting range, right? They could be the same, but that feels kind of dangerous. No, I actually like that. I kind of think they're the same room. So I think it's like, you know, the shooting range is up against a wall no one comes or leaves out of. But the point is it's like Axe League or something. Like you drink and you hang out and then you like get drunk and shoot the crossbows, you know? Yeah, I think the shooting range and the commons are the same place. That's the cool thing about it. The commons has a shooting range built in. Has a shooting range built into it. That way dwarves can drink and celebrate and drunkenly shoot crossbows. And drunkenly shoot crossbows at targets for fun. Okay, I like that. Great. I think that's it. Ooh, that's interesting. Wicker, woven and corded stuff. Things in tension. Huh. Yeah, that's interesting. What's the like design? Wicker would be tough because I don't think they would get like wood would be hard for them to get up there, and any wood that they would have, they would use for the crossbows. But like, I like the idea of there being something like that in their architecture or in their like decoration. They have alabaster and they have opal, but like, what's the something thematic about tension is interesting to me. I don't know what they would do with that in art, but it's cool. I'll think about that. Ooh, suspended natural history museum stuff dangling from the ceiling. That's kind of cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty good, y'all. And the poor shield bearer, yeah, he's got the shield on his back. It's like, hey, come on, right? He like goes there. Yeah, that's cool. It's like the ball boy. The bolt boy? Yeah, I think that's funny. Fetched by a long-suffering bolt boy who retrieves the arrows with a shield strapped to their back. They're like, you're not supposed to shoot them, but like sometimes your finger slips, right? Yeah, I love that. Okay, cool. I do like that though, the branch weave. Maybe there's like a tree or something that's growing up there. Although, yeah, it's like roots. I don't hate that idea of there being like roots, kind of like in the rock. Roots growing in the rock. Dangling down. in places. It's kind of cool. Like, it doesn't really make sense they're so high, but I kind of like the mystery of that. Sweet. I think that's Clan Bracebow, everybody. We did the famous personages. I'll do the names on my own time because the names are so fiddly. Talk about their history, although there isn't a lot because they've kind of recently founded at the time of the campaign. They have Alabaster and Opal. They have relationships with Axebite and Cloud Peak. They probably have other relationships, but for the purposes of Menagerie, that's all I really need to know. They have a philosophy all about isolation, pretty complicated politics, which I think is kind of cool. I'm excited to delve into that with the group and see how they respond. And then, yeah, I think a lot about Snow Perch, which is cool. Sweet. I actually really, one of the things, I think my favorite thing, the Messenger is definitely my favorite thing that we came up with for sure. But I think the concept of the Bracebow too, where it's like the rudimentary early crossbow that's all like, you know, it's got a harness and a shoulder strap and like a bunch of stuff. I think it's kind of fun. I like that. I like the antiquity of that. Cool. So that's the stream, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Sorry for those of you who showed up towards the end, but I appreciate everyone's help and suggestions. This was a good one. Yeah, if you like the channel, you like the video, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you're watching this on VOD, I think everybody in the chat is definitely subscribed, but I always like to say it just in case. Lots of content you can find. You can find me on Twitter, on Discord, you know, all the places. Most of them are linked down below. You can find me on my website, prodm.net, pro-dm.net. And I would tell you that you could hire me to run a game for you, but I am actually pretty full at this point. I had to turn somebody away the other day, and that was a cool feeling. It's a good problem to have, but you feel like I'm just Minnesotan enough that I'm like, I'm so sorry. Maybe we could, like, I have to be like, nope, I'm full. I'll put you on the waiting list. Like, I can't. So I would tell you to go to my website, but unfortunately at this time, I cannot take on any more clients. Great. We will be back on Tuesday with another stream right here, although it'll be at 2 p.m. PST. I'll be doing adventure prep for my one of my client games, my kind of like Ravnica Sigil mashup game called Mansionscape, which that's maybe the weirdest game I'm running right now. No, not maybe. It is definitely the weirdest game I'm running right now. Although I'm running Witchlight on every other Friday, and that's pretty weird. That's a pretty weird game. Even without my weird players. But anyway, Tuesday, 2 p.m. PST, come on back here and help me figure out. My players are going to commit an act of domestic terrorism as a false flag operation to sabotage the campaign of one of their political rivals. They asked me, when we finished our last arc, we did like a dragon heist, and we finished that, and they got the money, and they were leaving. And I asked them, like, you know, what kind of game, what do you guys like? Do you want to do another, you know, adventure? What are we thinking? They decided they wanted to do some plane hopping stuff, so we went to Sigil, and they specifically said they wanted to do political intrigue. They liked some of the, like, all the factions and stuff in Dragon Heist, because I used all the villains, and they really liked scheming and manipulating and moving people around. And so I was like, okay, cool. Well, you'll go to Sigil and you get involved with the factions there. Although I think I plucked many of the factions out of Ravnica because I know those factions better from Magic. And I was like, cool, you have to sabotage the campaign of this Celestial. And then they were like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make fake terrorist masks of the candidate's face, who's the Celestial, and we're going to bust into a public office and start shooting crazy fireballs around and screaming, you know, glory to Lulu, the Celestial that's running for office here. And that was their first idea, was like, what if we committed an act of terrorism to try to, like, siphon support away from her and make her look like an extremist? And they're like 13. So I was like, okay. So they're planning it, and then they're going to do it next session. So I've got to figure out, like, what are the defenses of this place that they're going into, and how would they respond to a bunch of crazed Celestial fanatics. That'll be Tuesday. Wild stuff. Just like Vaughn said, right? It's dungeons and it's democracy and decisions is what we're doing here on my games. Anyway, that's Tuesday, 2 p.m. Don't miss it. Thanks everybody for coming. Oh, there's some things. I'm only one man. Yeah. Create a Dungeons & Dragons network, you know? Very well. I really should think about it. Yeah, dude, the politics in Sigil, like, I scrapped the factions that I found in 2nd edition because, like, they were just, like, I'm sure they're cool, but, like, with my 13-year-olds, they just, like, could not handle that. Like, how weird they are, and, like, the godless and, like, all this stuff. So I figured that the factions from Ravnica, the kind of, like, 2-color combinations, right, like the Golgari and the Izzet League and stuff, like, that's a little easier to grok. But Woe is right, Alan. They they went right for the throat. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's fun. They were having a great time talking about it. So we're gonna do that next time. Almost as madcap as you, indeed. Great. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I appreciate you being here. Oh man, I need to remember this. I always forget it. What goodbye is in Dwarven. I have to write it down. I have Ojvazod, but every stream I'm like, oh shit, I forgot to look it up. Well, goodbye in Dwarven, everyone. I will talk to you next time. Until then, happy adventuring.